We get asked all the time about sports injuries. As you guys have probably seen, we have a bunch of Olympic paraphernalia around here. And I know for myself, when I was early in practice, I had a ton of people who were on the football field or the Paralympics. I had a lot of those. And one thing that I found is that people who were getting adjusted regularly were performing substantially better than people who weren't. And even in the Olympic world, a lot of them wanted to be adjusted, but financially they had a hard time. A lot of people don't know in the Olympics, you train day in and day out for years and years, but there isn't a lot of funding behind it. So I think one of the issues was always, how do they reach their optimal performance? They all wanted to get adjusted. They all wanted their body to be working better, but it was financially, how do they make that happen? So it wasn't necessarily, I think in the sports industry, do they want adjustments? Do they want chiropractic? It's just, how do they do it? And even athletic directors at high schools. I was talking to the one locally, and he said, all right, what would chiropractic do? Why should we get our girls' basketball team adjusted? And I went through all of the national hockey teams, all the golfers, the national football teams, the national basketball teams. All of them have their own chiropractors, and it's not because there are players that have back pain or neck pain. It's because they want optimal performance, optimal alignment, optimal nerve function for all their players.
In the future, if you want to play for a long time, if you want to continue to do whatever sport it is that you like to do for a long time, you learn now how to take care of your body and what works for your body, so that when you get into, like, let's just say a pro level, you already have the foundation of everything and you're way ahead of everybody else. I think we had a conversation one time about like football and how many kids don't get adjusted, but we think about the younger players who are getting adjusted, and even though there's like huge impacts that happen to their bodies, lots of trauma, they have that foundation in chiropractic, so their bodies are way ahead of the game and recovering even before they start, getting hit.
So when you think of how anything's built, like this watch, this table, the structure of it determines what its usage is. So when you think of all the joints that we have in our body, and you think of the proper position that they're supposed to be in was designed by God, not by man. So you know that we all have these intricate joints that need to be in perfect alignment for perfect function. And when they're off just slightly, and I would always give the example of, like, if I took my foot and bent it to the side and walked on the side of my foot, within a few minutes, I'm going to feel pain because my body says that is not how the foot was set up. And in a drastic position like that, there's no way I could run fast. There's no way I could be agile. There's no way I could do what the foot is capable of doing if it's in the right position. Forget about neurology and all the other cool stuff that we deal with when you just think of like the bones and how they're set up and how they're lined up. If it's off even just millimeters, that's going to change how fast you are.
And our primary doctor for my entire life was our chiropractor. So we would have something happen to us, and we would always go to the chiropractor first, get their opinion, and then go to wherever they referred us to. The idea of a chiropractor as a primary care for sports injuries is fairly normal to me, but I'm realizing that a lot of people are just catching up on this. The idea that you would go somewhere that's just going to give you drugs or painkillers isn't necessarily the best road when you can go to someone who could potentially fix it or refer you to someone that you need to see.
And there's going to be traumas and there's going to be things that happen because that's just what sports are. And what Dr. Taylor was talking about with football, it's like we're choosing to beat our body up unnaturally. Like whether it's running, jumping, getting tackled, swinging a golf club, throwing a pitch, we're doing things to the body that are just out of the ordinary, and we're doing it repetitively. And so you want to just set yourself up very well so that you can deal with those traumas, you can deal with those repetitive injuries, and make sure that you're ultimately in the position for success.
These athletes are now taking what used to be, these quick fixes, shots on the sidelines. I like the shift that's happening in the athletic world, trying to not just mute things and really work on getting to the cause.
And I think a lot of athletes are advocating for themselves better too, saying, I don't just want shots and drugs, I want to actually get fixed. The idea of a cortisone shot in your knee and get back out there, I don't think athletes want that because they know how bad it is for them. But they don't always know where to turn or what to do. And the crazy part is I've even known athletes who are secretly going to get chiropractic care because the manager on the team or whoever's running the kind of the health side of the team doesn't have a chiropractor or doesn't quote unquote believe in chiropractic. So these athletes aren't getting better doing what their sports manager is telling them to do. Their sports manager isn't giving them any other options, and they're having to secretly go find chiropractors to help them. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be the first option for them.
The joints that we focus on are the spinal joints. And when you have hips that are off, your spine's going to have to compensate, and that's where your nerve roots are. And why we see common injuries like people that have chronic hip pain, knee pain, ankle pain, they start seeing the digestive issues. They start seeing prostate issues. They start seeing menstrual issues. And they don't relate that, hey, this hip injury from sports or knee injury is creating a misalignment now in your lower back. Those nerves go directly into and control your stomach, intestines, your prostate, your bladder, your hormones, your even fertility, and it gets missed. We just think about the pain, and we think about trying to get rid of the pain and not the alignment issue. Remove the interference, correct, and not only balance out so you can run better and move better, but now you're talking about getting your body actually healing and functioning better and eliminating other disease processes that starts building.
I worked with a lot of military before, and they were doing the same thing, coming to me because they couldn't get in on base or they needed something a little bit more and they just weren't getting it. And it was kind of like a sneaky thing. They were paying out of pocket, but they knew how important it was and what they did was important to them. So they wanted to make sure they were getting treated appropriately and not just, taking medicine and poisoning their bodies.
A lot of MDs are like just going for a physical checkup. They don't take a lot of time to necessarily address the sport-specific movements that you're doing versus just general movements, because a tennis player doesn't do the same movements as a football player. And I think that chiropractors take a little bit more time out of their day to say, wait, how did you hurt yourself with this movement specifically? Okay, maybe we can work on training you into getting stronger with that movement and other movements associated with the sport versus just, okay, do you feel pain anymore? No? Okay, you're good. Kind of send off way.
A person may be injured or they may need to go somewhere to a medical doctor first to save their life, but then afterwards they also need to be taken care of to reach their optimal potential too.
You want to know, all right, what's the actual cause? How do I correct that? And address it all. Address the skeletal system, address the muscular system, address the inflammation with nutrition. There's a lot of ways to go after it, but I think there's a misdiagnosis a lot, or they're only diagnosing the portion that they can quote unquote treat, and so the subluxation, as we call it, the bones that aren't positioned well, does not get diagnosed and does not get treated because it was never assessed.